Hi, welcome to Backyard Music, and we're going to take a moment here to show you how to string the dulcimer. The first thing you're going to do, you've got the dulcimer built, and you've got your bridge that's going to go down in the bottom slot by the strum hollow. You have a spacer that goes up near the peg head. So we're going to string up the dulcimer, and I'm going to show you that the thing to do often enough with this black bridge, it doesn't fit in the slot, or it's a little too snug, as you see with my hands there. It doesn't quite fit. So I'm going to show you what to do about that. And we take a piece of sandpaper, and literally you can just hold the sandpaper down, and then I hold the bridge on the paper and with these three fingers, and I just go back and forth. This is an 80 grit sandpaper. You can use some coarser grit and it will happen, or if you got finer, it's just going to take you a few more wipes. And I flip it over and I sort of do both sides. And then you can, when you sand it a little bit, you can see how it fits up. It's still not quite, almost better though. And it's also best to try to not sand them too thin, that they're very loose in the slots, but you know, you'll figure it out. Let's try it again. So this is the bridge, and now it fits in the slot nicely. So you can see how we put that in there. And also you can see as I put this in here that the bridge, the height of the bridge is rather high. So I'm going to come back to that, and I'm going to show you how to adjust the height of the bridge itself, because that'll be the that'll determine the height of the strings. Here we have the spacer that's going to fit in over on the end with the peg head. So again, it has the same little problem. Sometimes it's a little too thick. So just like we just did with the bridge, you're gonna sand it on the little piece of paper. Give it some scraping back and forth. Flip it over. Sometimes the plastic has some burrs on it that make it too thick to fit in the slot, and so you're taking off those burrs and just thinning it a little bit. Just enough back and forth. And then like the bridge, you sand it a little bit, and then you go try it on the end. And it's sort of nice if you sand it that it's really loose, then it's best to put some glue in there to hold it. But sometimes you just sand it enough that it goes in there firmly, and it's nice because then you don't have to glue it. So you just push it down with your fingers, and then you've got your spacer in here. And this one has 3 slots. There's some of my dulcimers that have 4 slots, but this is just a 3 slot. And so now I'm going to show you how to string the dulcimer. So now that we have the bridge and the spacer in the fretboard, we're going to string it. And the best way that I find to string the dulcimer is I always start with the bass string. And so the nail that's the farthest away from you, that's under the fretboard, is where you're going to anchor the bass string, farthest away from you. So I use the loop, and I loop it on the nail, and then I bring it up, and I use my hand to keep tension on it. And then the bass string goes into the hole in the pin of this first tuning gear, the very, very first one. So you take the end, again I'm holding the string with my right hand, just keeps it firm. And so with my left hand I feed the end of the string into the hole in the center of the pillar. And then I work it into that slot. And then you can turn this by hand, and you want to be turning it counterclockwise. But if you happen to have a drill like I do in my shop, and I've done this many times, but you see how that's turning it counterclockwise to bring the string underneath the pin. So I've started it, but then I'm going to go and use the drill to counterclockwise. That's going to tighten up the string. And you don't have to make the string real tight to start, because we're still going to have to tune it. So then you've got this excess. So go in there with your clippers and clip that excess. And then it's back to your next string. And the next string I do is the melody string, which is the one closest to you when you play the dulcimer. So onto that nail closest to me, I hook that loop. on the end of the string. I pull the string up, and now I'm going to go. Here's a point to take well. It's best to have your string go under even the first pin. It's going to be going into the second pin on the one closest to you, but go under the pin that you just put the base on. And then you take the end again, sometimes you have to turn it like that just to help get better access to it. You put the string through, and you leave some slack. If you notice with my hand how much my hand is tipped back, it's holding the string back, because you're going to want to have at least 4 or 5 winds of the string on this pin, or else it's going to just slip and you won't be able to tune it. So, and again, you could turn it counterclockwise, and it's going to turn that pin and begin to tighten the string like this. But once again, I'm going to do my cheat, and I'm going to use my drill. So that has a whole bunch of turns. That is not going to slip. And you can, again, we're going to come back to tuning it later. And then you clip off your excess, and then you're ready for your middle string. And I hook it on that nail in the middle back here on underneath the fretboard, and I bring it up. And again, at the peg head, I put the string down underneath all the other pins, and then put it through the hole so that it comes up and out the top. So this is the middle string that I'm doing now. And again, it's best to leave some slack, so that you want to have more than enough wraps rather than not enough, because that's just going to be a pain if the string keeps slipping on you and going out of tune. So there's the middle string, and you're going to clip off the excess. Great, so now we've got the dulcimer strung. So now that the strings are all on, they're still relatively loose, because here's where we're going to work on adjusting the height of the action of the string, because I can feel, and you can even see the strings are rather high, and you're not going to want them too low, because then they might buzz on the frets. But we're going to start with adjusting that height. This bridge is just too high. So what I'm going to do now, we have the strings on. I just sort of lift the strings a little bit, and I'm going to push the bridge back out of the side like that. And now on the piece of sandpaper that we had sanded it to thickness before, we're going to use that paper to sand the height. Now the top edge of the bridge has an angle on it. You want to make sure that you keep that top with the angle, because you want the strings to angle up. But the bottom of it is square, and so you want to use the bottom of it. And once again, we're back to sanding on sandpaper. And you just sand a little bit, and then you look at it and make sure that you're still sanding it so that it's even. Sometimes you can sand it so that one end is sanded more than another. It starts to go out of line, and you just go back to sanding some more. It's getting down there where it's familiar to me. I've built a lot of these dulcimers, so I can sort of know this height, but I'm hoping this is going to help you to understand it. So I sanded it down a little bit. I blow the dust off. And now we're just going to slide it back in, and sure enough, it's lower now. And I just sort of lift up the strings while I slide it back in like that. And then when you have the bridge back in, you can sort of feel the height of the string, and that feels much better. It's not too high and it's not too low. And if for some reason you sand this down so that it's too low, you can use things like a wooden match, or a little strip of balsa wood that you can get at your hardware store to put underneath the bridge to raise it back up. So you can really adjust the height of this so that it's not too high and it's not too low. But right now we've got it just perfect. And so now I'm going to tune up the strings. And when you tune in the strings, it's nice to give them a nice little stretch. I use both my hands. You know, I don't pull hard, but I just give it a stretch. And I tend to start with the bass string first. And I go over to the melody string, just sort of the order that I strung them in. So that bass string is a D. That's a D. And so is this melody string, because we're tuning in a certain mode called the Mixolydian mode. So that's a D, and that's an octave higher D, and then the middle string is going to be an A. And again, I stretch them out, give them a good stretch. Tune them up. What I'm doing here is I just tuned it up, and I want to make sure that the height of the bridge is okay. So I play the strings at each fret to make sure that the strings aren't buzzing on it. And again, here's where you learn that if there's a buzz on the strings, that probably means that your bridge is too low and you want to raise it back up a little bit with something underneath it. So that means loosening all the strings again. It's, you know, but you're going to eventually get it right. And then, but if there's no buzzes, you're all set. That's how I check all my dulcimers before I ship them. So I hope that helps you to understand about the string action, the height of the strings on the dulcimer, so that it's not too high, not too low, because I want it to sound best for you and not be a problem with playing the dulcimer. So I hope that helped.